Hi, welcome back to Community Hotline. I'm Monica Weitzel, and we're here in Gresham at MetroEast Community Media. And now we're going to be talking with the Catholic Charities organization, specifically their Immigration Legal Services Department. And representing Catholic Charities, I have Sarah Peirce, who's a Rural Program Director. Welcome. And Allison Folks, who's a staff attorney with Catholic Charities. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, it's great to have you here. I've spoken with Catholic Charities a little bit regarding some of their other programs, specifically the DACA project and the El Programa program, or El Hispan. You know which one I'm talking about. The Spanish, for the Spanish-speaking community, and Catholic Charities just does a myriad of things. It's amazing how many programs they have. Can you tell me a little bit just about Catholic Charities before we specifically talk about the program we're going to talk about tonight? Can you tell me a little bit just about some of the things that they do and why Catholic Charities was formed?
Sure. So Catholic Charities is the social service arm of the Catholic Church, and we, they do so many amazing things. It's hard to describe them all, but they work with the most vulnerable and poor individuals in our communities, and they have been serving the Portland area for about 80 years now. Some of our programs include refugee resettlement to help refugees who are newly arriving adjust to life in the United States. There's El Programa Hispano, you mentioned, who provides services to the Latino community, including victims of abuse and sexual assault. There's financial wellness, which helps individuals stabilize their economic situation, pregnancy support and adoption.
But the people that are served by Catholic Charities do not have to be Catholic.
That's right. Yeah, Catholic Charities provide services regardless of your beliefs or religion.
And how do people get their services? Are they referred, or can people just go to Catholic Charities and say, I need help figuring out my financial situation, or I'm an illegal immigrant and I need some help figuring out what to do? Do you know?
Well, yeah. Go ahead.
Each program has its own, community contacts where they get referrals from, but oftentimes people will just call the main number and get internal referrals from our main reception area because they don't know they don't know what contact. They're just like, I need help. This is what's wrong.
And whoever answers the phone says, I may not know, but somebody here does.
They say, that sounds a lot like something that this program could help you with. Let me give you the best number to contact for them. So
good. So what kind of relief are you able to give the victims of crime or abuse? Because you said you sometimes help people that are victims of domestic violence or other kinds of abuse. What kinds of things can you do for them?
Well, for our program specifically?
Or
any
program.
Okay. For El Programa Hispano, for instance, they have a 24-hour crisis line, so they can provide services that way. They do all kinds of work one-on-one with clients, counseling, that sort of thing as well. And then for our program, we do specifically immigration relief for victims of crimes and abuse. And most commonly for us, that's U visas and VAWAs, which...
VAWAs?
Yes, and so the U visa is a special type of temporary immigration relief for victims of crimes who speak with or have contact with law enforcement. And VAWA stands for the Violence Against Women's Act.
Oh, okay.
And that is a self-petition for people who are married to U.S. citizens or lawful permanent residents and are abused by them. And they can be male or female. Sometimes the Violence Against Women's Act makes it sound like it's just for women, but it's not.
For men too. And that's good to know. That's good to know, because yes, men are victims too sometimes. Sarah, tell me about the rural program. What's that all about?
So the rural program is a part of our general immigration legal services program. Overall, our program provides high quality immigration services for low income individuals who otherwise might not be able to afford immigration services. Our overall program focuses on family reunification and helping people who are refugees, victims of abuse, and young people who are eligible for the DACA program that you mentioned before.
Right.
Specifically, the rural program which we work in is funded by the Department of Justice Office of Violence Against Women, and we exclusively help rural victims in Oregon who are victims of domestic violence, sexual assault, child sex abuse, and we can offer them consultations for free and assist with their immigration cases for free if they qualify for our program.
Keep pretty busy.
We do.
We have a huge immigrant population here.
Yeah,
I
we
mean,
do.
I can imagine that
We do.
you are always,
We
there's always
do.
people, is there a waiting list for your help?
There is. There is. It's getting shorter, but especially for our rural program, because there is just such a high demand, we do have a bit of a wait. I mean, there are a lot of people who need those services. There's and there are there's certain barriers that are faced by immigrant victims of these crimes that aren't really faced by other victims of those types of crimes. Language
what?
barriers, fear of the police, depending on what the situation was with police in their home country. If they are in a domestic violence relationship where they're being threatened with their immigration status constantly, or deportation, loss of their children, and also not just language isolation, but physical isolation. We're working with people who are in very rural areas of Oregon, so they have trouble just even getting in contact with someone who can direct them to the right place. We work with partners, domestic violence agencies around the state in rural areas who kind of come into contact with these people and then direct them to us so they can get our immigration services in addition to those sort of victim services.
So do you do all of Oregon?
We do all of Oregon.
Wow.
Our rural program is exclusively rural Oregon,
Right.
so it's what you would think. We don't do Multnomah County and some of the surrounding areas that aren't rural, but people who live in
Big area.
It is a big area. We travel a lot. We put
Yeah.
a lot of miles on
I
the
bet
car
you
to
do.
go and visit those places. But we think that those people have the least access to
I'm
those
sure.
kind of
I'm
services.
sure. We have a lot more services here in Multnomah County. So can either of you give me an example of somebody that you may have worked with who you've been able to help? Give me a call that you got and how you handled it.
Well, I mean, on a daily basis, I guess the most common thing we see is domestic violence. People in very scary, real situations where they're, being physically and emotionally abused.
Right.
We see a lot of child sex abuse also, unfortunately.
Tough stuff.
Yeah. So we do some human trafficking cases as well. People are trafficked in for either sex trafficking or employment trafficking.
Oh.
And Portland is actually a big kind of hot spot for that.
That and I-5 corridor,
Yeah,
right?
right.
That's what I've heard.
Yeah. So those are really the types of cases.
What cases do you not take? What kind of things do you not do?
We do not handle employment outside of the trafficking context.
Okay.
If there is some employment trafficking, and we do take those cases, but we don't do generally employment immigration, business immigration. We do
Okay.
not
Like
do
if
that.
somebody's hired an illegal
Exactly,
or
a
something.
corporation
Yeah.
wants to, transfer an employee to another country or something like
Yeah.
that. We don't do that. But we also don't have the resources to take cases where individuals have very serious criminal histories or where they're currently detained by immigration. Those
okay.
cases take a lot of work and hours, and because our caseloads are so high, it's difficult for us to take on those cases, unfortunately.
So you're able to help these people at a low cost to them?
If they qualify for the rural program, we can help them for free. So
Right.
it's great.
Right.
And sometimes there's fees associated with immigration applications, but we can often ask for a fee waiver for those from the government because of their financial situation as well. So.
And our general program does have to charge fees, but they're nominal fees because we're Catholic Charities, and no one's turned away for an inability to pay because we're Catholic
Right.
Charities.
That's great. Now, I mentioned how there's people, there's a huge immigrant population here, but there's people from all over the world. How do you deal with all these different people? How many languages are spoken, for example, in your office?
Well, almost all of our staff members are bilingual with English and Spanish.
Okay.
So
Which covers a large portion.
That's
of
a
the
large
immigrant
portion
point,
of who we serve.
Yeah.
We also have staff who speak Vietnamese and Farsi, and we have a volunteer attorney who's from Sweden. So if that's a need, we can.
The Swedish people know who to call.
We can also get an interpreter for almost any language through our food partnerships with other organizations.
Do you work with like ERCO?
We do.
Yeah.
That's who we use for.
Oh, there you go. See? Yeah. Yeah, they're a good organization. Really? I don't know how any nonprofit survives anymore without partnering with another organization. Are there other organizations that you partner with or is it government mostly?
Well, did you mention, we partner with DV agencies throughout the state, and that's how we get most of our clients through the rural program, is we do outreach and training. We go visit those rural communities and we train service providers on the U visa and VAWA, the Violence Against Women's Act self-petition that I mentioned earlier, so that they know when people are coming into the DV agencies how to kind of identify people who might be eligible for our services and then refer them to us. So we have a very broad network of domestic violence. When I say DV, I talk in acronyms.
I know what you mean. Oh yeah, domestic violence. Yeah. So what kind of service providers would you be talking about? Like
people who work for DHS, the Department of Human Services. People who
spell
work
them
for
out.
CPS, Child Protective Services.
Okay. So you go and actually train them on what to do if they're
exactly
immigrants.
Yeah, if someone comes in and they say, I've been a victim of this crime, or I'm trying to flee my abusive spouse who's a U.S. citizen, I mean, those are red flags for them to say,
maybe
maybe
you need to get a hold of you
contact
guys.
Catholic Charities.
We also get referrals directly from law enforcement agencies who know about services like the U visa and things that people might be eligible for. So if they come into a domestic violence situation and they recognize that person might not have documents, they can point them in our direction to sort of be like, I see that you're a victim, you might be eligible for this sort of relief to kind of help you escape this situation. So we get, district attorney's offices, police sheriff's offices.
And that's great that they do that. I can understand how people would be afraid, especially if there's a fear of deportation.
Yeah.
You always hear about people that say, I don't want to be involved. They witnessed an accident or they witnessed a crime and they don't want to give their information because they're here illegally. And so what do you do?
Right.
So how do you deal with people like that? I mean, how are you able to help them if they're reticent to accept your help?
Well, once we come in contact with them, usually they're willing to accept our help. We like to explain that we are not law enforcement, we're not immigration, we're here to help them. Everything that they tell us is confidential. We have an attorney-client relationship with those people, and so everything that they tell us is confidential. I mean, one of the great things about the U visa in particular is that one of the primary purposes of it is to help those people in immigrant communities who might be afraid to speak to police, to give them some assurance that they won't be deported or removed or arrested if they're a victim, and that they will actually be helped and that there are additional benefits. So it really benefits the whole community because people are willing to talk to the police. They're willing to help them investigate crimes, and ultimately that helps the law enforcement find and arrest criminals. So.
Right.
And unfortunately, I mean, people are really targeted because they don't have status for crimes and for abuse because they know that they're not going to come forward and talk to police. And so we're really lucky that Congress has recognized that immigration status is used as a form of abuse and control, and has created the U visa and the self-petition under the Violence Against Women's Act to help people.
As if it isn't stressful enough coming to a new country where you don't speak the language, you don't know hardly anyone. I mean, that's tough enough as it is. Yeah, so, but speaking of being tough, I think it would be tough to be in your shoes sometimes to do this job because of, like you're talking about, the child sex abuse and the domestic violence. Those are pretty tough, and you have to be kind of a hard shell to deal with some of those. I would think you don't seem very tough. I mean, how does that affect you personally? Is it?
Yeah, I mean, we hear a lot of really hard stories, but I mean, it's just so gratifying to be able to help somebody get from a point where they're, in crisis, maybe in a shelter, homeless, a victim of domestic violence, to a point where they have, work authorization, lawful status, they're moving themselves and their families forward, that you kind of just focus on that. I mean, we hear a lot of
the end result, not where it came from.
And I mean, it's so nice to be able to see, an actual difference that you're making.
So you do feel like you make a
So,
difference.
absolutely.
I think that would be great.
Yeah.
Have you both been there quite a while at Catholic Charities? Or?
I've been there for 2 years,
Yeah,
a little over
yeah.
2 years.
It's been about a year and a half
Yeah,
for me.
yeah.
I was a volunteer there for
Oh,
several
were
years
you?
before
Okay.
I started.
So if people want to volunteer,
Yeah,
there's volunteer
Yes,
opportunities
we
at
love
Catholic Charities.
volunteers.
What kinds of things would volunteers do? What did you do?
For our office, I was a legal intern, so I worked under the attorneys, but it was a great experience. I got the opportunity to start and finish cases, work with the clients, prepare all the applications.
Great
It
training
was-
for you too.
Yeah,
you know?
so it was a
on
great,
the job training.
it
getting
was a great
volunteer.
experience
Good.
in Catholic. Yeah, I mean it's really such a privilege to work with these clients. It is difficult. It's hard not to take some of the stories home with you that you hear, but I mean, like she said, it's so rewarding, and I mean,
And we always need translation volunteers,
Oh.
people to translate. We have
Yeah.
lots of documents that are in another language and before anything goes to immigration, it has to be translated into English. So we're always using people to come in and
So
volunteer
people
with
speak
us.
another language,
So, yeah.
no matter what it is,
If they
call and
speak,
see if.
read and write another language, call, and we can usually fit them in for volunteers.
That's great. That's great. So, what do you want us to take away from this? What do you think is the most important thing people should know about the rural program, or just about the immigration legal services?
we really just want to spread the word that there is immigration relief out there for victims of abuse and crimes. And so if people or anyone that those people know have been abused or a victim of a crime, and they either don't have status or have questions about their immigration status, they should contact us because there is help out there, and specifically for rural victims, they may be eligible for free legal services under our
great.
grant. So it's a really great.
That's a good deal.
And even if somebody doesn't qualify for the grant program, oftentimes we can send them a referral list of other attorneys who might be able to help them with their case, or at least get them to tell them about we have charlas, which are immigration talks on the first Tuesday of each, in the evening on the first Tuesday of each
really?
month. So that's our call-in day for our general program. So 9 a.m. people can call in and on the first Tuesday, and if they live, in the metro area, and try and get an appointment if they have questions about immigration. But if those spots fill up fast, and so we also have these events where an immigration attorney comes and gives a presentation on just an overview of immigration, and then people can ask their specific questions. And we alternate between our Gresham location and our Portland location, and so people with questions can just come there. And
So you do free call-ins, you have free call-ins, and you have free consultations.
the general program has a fee for their consultations,
Okay.
but for the rural program, the
It's
consultation
free.
is free. Yeah.
Good deal.
Yeah.
Good deal. Well, I hope there's somebody out there
Yeah.
who didn't know about the program that'll take advantage of it, or they know of somebody who needs it, and that's even more likely that there's
Yeah.
somebody that knows somebody who could use it. So thanks for all the hard work you do. I
Thank
know it's got to be
you.
tough, but it does sound like you're really making a difference.
Thank you.
Thanks very much for watching this part of Community Hotline. This has been a more serious topic, but it's a very important one. And so if you know of somebody that needs help, especially in a rural area, now you know who to call. And we'll be back here next week with more information about the good organizations in your community that are doing the work that's needed. I'm Monica Weitzel. Thanks for watching Community Hotline.